Have you ever found yourself gazing out of an airplane window, thousands of feet above the ground, and suddenly wondered, why don't we have parachutes on commercial flights? It's a question that seems to pop up in the minds of many travelers, especially those who feel a little uneasy about flying. At first glance, it feels like such an obvious safety feature, something that should be as standard as seatbelts or oxygen masks. After all, we're given detailed safety demonstrations before every flight, and we're shown where the life vests are stored in case of a water landing. We have life vests tucked under our seats, ready for the rare chance of ditching in water. So why not parachutes for those terrifying mid-air emergencies we all secretly hope never happen? The logic seems straightforward. Planes soar at incredible heights, and the biggest danger is falling from the sky. Parachutes are designed to save people from falls, so wouldn't it make sense to have one for every passenger? We see parachutes all the time in movies and documentaries. Skydivers leap from planes with ease, and military personnel routinely jump out of aircraft with parachutes strapped to their backs. In those situations, parachutes seem to work perfectly. So why can't the same logic apply to commercial flights? Why can't we all just bail out if something goes wrong? It almost feels like airlines are overlooking something incredibly obvious, leaving passengers to wonder if there's a missing piece in the safety puzzle. But the truth is, this isn't just a fleeting thought from a nervous flyer. It's a genuine engineering and safety conundrum that experts have considered for decades. We're surrounded by safety systems in our daily lives. Seatbelts in cars, fire escapes in buildings, emergency exits on buses and trains. These features are designed to give us the best possible chance of survival in an emergency. So it's only natural to ask, why not parachutes on planes? Why is this one safety device missing from the checklist? The idea of having a parachute under your seat is so compelling because it offers a sense of control, a way to take action in a terrifying, out-of-control scenario. It's comforting to imagine that, if the worst were to happen, you could simply strap on a parachute and float safely to the ground. But as with many things that seem like common sense, the reality is far more complicated than it appears on the surface. There are layers of science, engineering, and logistics that make the idea much less practical than it first seems. The absence of parachutes on commercial flights isn't a careless oversight or a cost-cutting measure. It's actually a deliberate, evidence-based decision made by aviation experts, engineers, and safety regulators after years of careful analysis. In fact, adding parachutes could introduce new dangers and make emergencies even worse. So, let's break down the real reasons why parachutes aren't part of your in-flight safety kit, and why, in the world of aviation, sometimes what seems like the obvious solution is anything but. The idea of parachutes sticks with us because deep down, it offers a comforting illusion of control in situations where we feel utterly powerless. Imagine yourself thousands of feet above the ground, surrounded by strangers with no influence over what happens next. In that moment, the thought of having a parachute, something tangible you could use to save yourself, becomes incredibly appealing. At 35,000 feet, you're not the pilot, you're not the engineer, you're just along for the ride. That sense of helplessness can be deeply unsettling, especially for those who like to be in control of their own destiny. A parachute feels like a tool that puts your fate back in your own hands. It's a symbol of hope, a backup plan that lets you believe you could take action if the worst were to happen. Hollywood absolutely loves this scenario. The alarms blare, chaos erupts, and the hero, with nerves of steel, grabs a parachute and leaps to safety, defying the odds. These scenes are thrilling, and they reinforce the idea that parachutes are the ultimate escape plan. We're conditioned by movies, TV shows, and even cartoons to see parachutes as the obvious solution to an in-flight emergency. It's almost second nature to imagine that, if things go wrong, you could just strap one on and jump. This idea appeals directly to our survival instincts. In a crisis, doing something, anything, feels better than sitting and waiting for fate to decide. The parachute represents action, agency, and a fighting chance. The parachute myth is powerful because it promises us agency in a crisis. It whispers that we don't have to be passive victims. We can take matters into our own hands, even in the most extreme situations. It's not a silly idea at all. In fact, it's rooted in our most basic needs for control, safety, and reassurance. When we're faced with uncertainty, our minds naturally search for solutions that put us back in the driver's seat. But the reality of aviation is far more complex than the movies make it seem. Airplanes are intricate machines, and the environment at cruising altitude is harsh and unforgiving. There are countless factors at play that make the parachute solution much less straightforward than it appears. So, what's the next step? We need to test this idea against the real-world challenges of flight. That means looking beyond the fantasy and examining the science, the engineering, and the logistics involved. We'll break down the forces acting on an airplane, the extreme environment outside the cabin, and the human factor, how people actually respond in emergencies. Each of these elements plays a crucial role in determining whether parachutes are a viable option. Is the parachute solution really as simple and effective as it seems in our imagination? Or is there more to the story than meets the eye? Let's dig deeper and find out. It's time to put this enduring myth to the test, separating fact from fiction and discovering what really happens when you try to bring parachutes into the world of commercial aviation. Let's take a moment to consider what it really means to be inside a jet, soaring miles above the earth at incredible speeds. It might feel calm and safe inside the cabin, but outside, it's a completely different world. One that's harsh, unforgiving, and extremely dangerous for humans. When you look out the window at 35,000 feet, you're seeing an environment that's as alien as the surface of another planet. The sky is a deep blue, the clouds look soft and inviting, but the reality is far from peaceful. Up here the air is incredibly thin, there's barely enough oxygen to breathe. The temperature outside the plane can plummet to -70 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to freeze exposed skin in seconds. It's a place where humans simply aren't meant to survive without protection. If the cabin lost pressure and you didn't have an oxygen mask, you'd lose consciousness in less than a minute. Your body just can't function in such low oxygen conditions. And then there's the wind. At cruising speed, a jet is slicing through the air at over 500 miles per hour. That's not just a gentle breeze, it's a relentless invisible wall of force that would tear apart anything not built to withstand it. Imagine trying to open a parachute in those conditions. The fabric would be shredded instantly, and the lines would snap like threads. Even the strongest parachute can't handle that kind of punishment. Parachutes are carefully engineered for much lower speeds, typically under 200 miles per hour. That's why skydivers jump from small planes at lower altitudes, where the air is thicker and the speeds are manageable. If you tried to deploy a parachute at jet speeds, the opening shock would be catastrophic. The harness could snap, the chute would be torn apart, and the forces on your body could be fatal. For a parachute to work safely, the plane needs to be flying low, slow, and with the cabin unpressurized, conditions that almost never exist during a commercial jet emergency. In reality, emergencies on commercial jets happen at high altitudes and high speeds, leaving no time or opportunity to slow down and descend to a safe level for parachuting. The physics just don't add up. The forces involved are simply too great for parachutes to be a viable safety option at cruising altitude. That's why, despite what you might see in movies, parachutes are essentially useless at the altitudes and speeds where most commercial aviation incidents actually occur. The environment outside a jet is just too extreme for parachuting to be a realistic escape plan. Let's say we solve the physics. Now what about the people? Commercial jets carry hundreds of passengers. Kids, elderly, people with disabilities, and terrified flyers. Parachuting isn't intuitive. It takes training and a cool head. In a panic, most people would put the harness on wrong or get tangled. The chaos of an emergency would make a coordinated bailout impossible. Even if you jumped, landing safely is another skill entirely. Untrained landings often mean broken bones or worse. You could land in water, on power lines, or in the middle of nowhere. Parachutes don't guarantee survival. They just swap one danger for another. The human factor makes mass parachuting from a jet a recipe for disaster. Suppose everyone's trained. Now where do we put the parachutes? Each one weighs 15-30 pounds and is the size of a bulky backpack. For 200 passengers, that's thousands of extra pounds, like carrying dozens of extra people. More weight means more fuel, higher costs, and less space. There's no room under seats or in overhead bins already packed with luggage. Storing parachutes would require a total redesign of the cabin, sacrificing seats and revenue. Maintenance is another nightmare. Parachutes need regular inspection and repacking by certified professionals. Imagine servicing thousands of parachutes across an airline's fleet. The cost and logistics are staggering. Airlines simply aren't equipped for this. The storage and upkeep alone make parachutes impractical. Even if you have parachutes, how do you get out? You can't just open a door mid-flight. Plug doors are sealed by cabin pressure. At altitude, the pressure difference makes opening a door physically impossible. Depressurizing the cabin would be violent and dangerous. Even with special exits, you'd need multiple large bailout doors. You can't jump near engines or the tail, both are deadly. Designing safe bailout exits would require a total aircraft redesign. You'd need ramps or slides, adding weight and complexity. The result? A less efficient, more expensive plane for a scenario that almost never happens. The engineering challenges are overwhelming. Commercial jets just aren't built for mass bailouts. The just jump out idea is pure Hollywood. If parachutes are out, what keeps you safe? Aviation safety is all about prevention and layered protection. Planes are built tough, with redundant systems for everything critical. Pilots train for thousands of hours to handle emergencies. Most incidents happen during takeoff or landing, not mid-air. Seats are designed to withstand huge forces. Cabin materials are fire retardant. Oxygen masks buy time for pilots to descend to safe altitudes. Emergency slides allow rapid evacuation on the ground. Every safety feature is tested and proven. The safest place is inside the plane, not outside with a parachute. What about a giant parachute for the whole plane? Small aircraft use whole airframe parachutes, ballistic recovery systems. They work for light planes, saving hundreds of lives, but scaling up to a jetliner is impossible. A commercial jet weighs hundreds of thousands of pounds. The parachute needed would be massive, covering football fields, weighing tons. Deploying it would risk tearing the plane apart. You can't steer a falling jet, it would land wherever gravity takes it. Great for small planes, but not for airliners. Physics wins again. So, parachutes on planes? Myth busted. The real reason they're not there isn't cost-cutting, it's safety. Parachutes would make things more dangerous, not less. The true safety net is the entire aviation system: engineers, mechanics, air traffic controllers, and highly trained pilots. Every rule and checklist is built on hard-earned lessons. Air travel is the safest form of long-distance transportation ever created. Your odds of a fatal accident are minuscule. The focus is on keeping you safe inside the plane, not jumping out. Next time you wonder about parachutes, remember the system itself is your real parachute, and that's something you can trust.